Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population and with little or no meaningful engagement leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say. In Nigeria, the effective management of public funds remains a crucial issue for governance, development, and of course, citizen trust. With corruption, mismanagement, and a lack of transparency frequently cited as barriers to progress, tracking how government budgets are allocated and spent has become a powerful tool for accountability. Fortunately, in recent years, a range of digital platforms and civic tech tools have emerged to help citizens, journalists, and civil society organizations monitor government expenditures, expose financial irregularities, and also advocate for more responsible governance. It's a beautiful week, a new episode on your favorite primetime show, Ways. My name remains Osayiwa Mesale, and today we're discussing or we are following the money, right? And we're touching on some tools for tracking Nigeria's budget. Now, remember, Ways is all about you. You are the why in Ways. So be a part of the conversation by adding your voice every single day. You can also head on to our YouTube channel. It's at Official Upgrade TV. Hit the subscribe button, like, share. Invite your families and friends to also join the live conversation. When I open the phone lines, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this. As always, let me allow you ponder on my quote for the day. It says, consistent budget tracking by citizens is a veritable key to ensuring transparency and accountability in an ideal democratic setting. And of course, this was said by Isiaku Garba Yakasai, is a senior programs officer, Center for Information Technology and Development, that's CITAD. Now, we'll delve into the conversation around how we're going to track budget spendings and how we're going to follow the money. But let me run off on a break. When I come back from that break, I'll let you in for my let you in on my news interest for the day. Stay with me. All right, so the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, has endorsed the ongoing Write-a-thon, right? It is a project by Shuaibu Ishak aimed at showcasing the leadership excellence of the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In a statement issued on Monday in Abuja, the project coordinator, that's Ishak, said that the initiative is designed as a Guinness World Record attempt to compile a compendium of President Tinubu's achievements. The attempt involves a 72 hours continuous political commentary titled The Last Card, Why It Must Be Tinubu Again. And he commended Idris' effort, or Idris commended Ishak's effort, rather, for trying to document the president's leadership milestones despite opposition-driven misinformation and propaganda. Of course, the minister who reiterated the president's commitment to economic reforms also saluted Ishak's courage in articulating Tinubu's achievements in book form. In his remark, Ishak expressed delight at the minister's endorsement and pledged to diligently highlight leadership strides of the president. This is interesting. Why do we have to go through the Guinness Book of Record route, though? Yeah, when I saw this, I said, okay, interesting. 2027 is around the corner. Of course, a lot of people need to do things to get the president's attention, and this is just the Nigerian way. But, well, uh, would I say congratulations or good luck to him? Anyone that applies. All right, so a civil society organization, Save the Republic, has faulted the reported dismissal of over 800 Nigerian workers at the Dangote refinery after attempts to join a trade union. In a statement on Sunday that was signed by its convener, Deji Adeyanju, the group described the incident as a violation of labor rights and, of course, Nigeria's regulatory framework, stressing that such attempts undermine, or such actions rather, undermines the country's constitutional provision. The group further expressed concern over allegations that some positions formerly occupied by Nigerians were being handed rather to foreign workers despite the scale of government intervention and licenses granted to Dangote Group. The organization called on relevant government agencies to investigate the matter while appealing for calm and dialogue between stakeholders. So I'm going to speak on this issue as a business person. I know someone has actually told me that when you're ready to scale and to move this media business that you're setting up forward, it will be good for you to invite foreigners, not because they are foreigners, but just because of work ethics. Fortunately, I think I am not particularly amongst those group of people that do not have people that are diligent workers, but I understand the fact that the way Nigerians run things, right? If you really don't put your eyes and ears on the ground, you run into trouble, and that's why most people try to bring in foreign people to run their organizations for them. And Dangote has done this experiment for years. I mean, having Indians run the cement factory, like different arms of his businesses are run by Indians, and we've seen the progress. I mean, you can't deny anywhere all over the world globally, Indians are quite diligent. So I get that part of foreigners, but you have to also understand the dynamic nature or the delicate nature of how the mindset of a Nigerian is programmed when it comes to working, for entrepreneurs in this country. And as regards the union, right, I just want to say that all these unions and unions and unions, how much progress have we made with these unions? How much progress? We need to be really intentional about asking ourselves, what do we truly want? Do we want a situation where people keep on holding us to ransom, or we want to move forward as a country? If the question is we want to move forward as a country, there are some things that are already very, very outdated that is stopping us from growing, from scaling, and those are the things that we truly must check and see how, we can take ourselves out of it. I say this to say that whilst I was in university, fortunately for me, I attended a state university. When they were going on all those ASU strike, my state governor, in partnership with the vice chancellor of the university, said, we are not part of ASU. They can go ahead with their strike. Our own students, we are paying your salaries. It's the state government that is paying the salary. So we didn't have to have all those long strikes that our counterparts in federal universities were having. And that also helped me as an individual graduate within the 4 years that I was supposed to graduate. So I don't know if these unions, I don't know if it is serving us as a people. We need to go back and check. Is this thing working? If it's not working, then we should go back and say, let's re-strategize. How best do we handle the situation? Unions are good to some extent. It helps to have like a body that can hold both parties accountable, both the drivers and both the organizations. But you see, at the point where we are in the country, we need to find solutions that would move us forward. We've done these union things for years. How far have we gone? So I'll just leave it there because, sometimes every time I talk about the Dangote issue, people always assume that, I have a fat paycheck, somewhere from Dangote. No, I just feel like, when somebody has identified a problem in the country and the person is trying to solve the problem, the least we can do as a people is encourage. Yes, I get when Adeyanju was saying, oh, Dangote has gotten a lot of waivers from the government. Of course, he should get a lot of waivers. We're even asking for more waivers. For instance, if you're a farmer and you're going to be producing food that will feed the nation, if you want to scale your farm to be heavily mechanized, we should have waivers when you import those machineries or the things that would make the process flow better. Those are the kind of things we're asking for. So it's not just on Dangote. It should transcend beyond Dangote. Any business currently today that is solving a real problem in Nigeria, you must be able to galvanize the government to give those businesses some level of concession. That is the only way we can, because it is entrepreneurs that will build this nation. No government will come and change the situation. No, it is business owners, entrepreneurs that are the ones that will transform this country. So as much as we can, we need to, encourage them by any means necessary to make sure that the process is seamless and it flows better. So I'll move on to my final story. The federal government has approved a policy that makes submission of students' theses and final year project into the Nigerian Education Repository and Data Bank a compulsory requirement for mobilization into the National Youth Service Corps. Effective from October 6, no graduate, whether trained in Nigeria or abroad, will be mobilized for or exempted from NYSC without proof of compliance. And the new directive was contained in a circular issued by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, who conveyed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's approval on Saturday. The circular stated that the NYSC mobilization criteria have been adjusted in accordance with the President's regulation requiring proof of the NERD policy compliance for all prospective corps members, regardless of where they were educated. The policy requires all students to deposit their academic outputs, such as theses, projects, into the national database. It clarified the new rules do not affect serving corps members or those that mobilized before October 6, which will now be the enforcement date. So I don't know of what use this data would be for the government. Is it just to prove that these people have actually completed their university study, or is it that they want to use those data, for something bigger, maybe for research purpose or whatever it is? I really would love to get more clarity on why this is now important. That's the Nigeria Education Repository and Data Bank, the NERD. I want to know why it is going to be important. I mean, this is just me trying to educate myself, not that I have anything, to say, because if you have that data bank, and then what would you use that data for? What is it for? Is it just to, show that these people completed the university degrees, or it's something bigger than that? I mean, it would be nice to have more details on this. All right, so I'll run off on a break. When I come back, let's follow the money. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
Every year, Nigeria's government announces budgets that promises road, schools, hospitals, and other services, right? Yet many citizens do not see these promises come to life in their communities. Projects are often abandoned, funds are diverted, or figures remain on paper with little to show on ground. I mean, if you go to projects, there's even the case of where you see projects that have been put in budgets previous years continuously appearing on our budgets, right? These gaps between what is budgeted and what is delivered weakens trust in government and wastage of resources that could be used to improve lives. Now, tracking the budget is therefore not just a technical exercise, right? It is about citizens asking simple but important questions. What was allocated? Was the money released? Has the project been completed? By following the money, Nigerians can ensure that public funds truly serve the public. So joining me tonight, um, I have a guest online, Vayala, I believe, Kwaga. I hope I did not murder your name. Hi, Vayala.
You did, but I think by this point, I'm actually very used to it. Thank you, Asai, for having me. Good evening.
Oh, my goodness. How can you be used to it? That's not nice. I should get it right. Apologies. All right. So, I mean, thank you for joining me this evening. First of all, how has the day been for you?
The day has been interesting. It's been demanding. It's been challenging. But I'm glad to be here to share my thoughts with Nigerians.
Okay. So, I mean, let's start this conversation with because every time I have the conversation around budget, I keep on going around and around in circles in my head. Because really, why don't we pay attention to what happens in the budget as Nigerians? Before we even talk about tracking, we really need to understand the average Nigerian, what goes on in their head when they hear budget, right? What exactly are they thinking about, and why are they not even paying attention? Why are they not following this money?
Great question. I think your question touches on cognitive science, it touches on social contract theory, it touches on the experiences of post-colonial developing countries that are struggling with corruption. So from one perspective, why we don't think about budgets, about federal budgets, is not uncommon to Nigerians. It has been shown that it is difficult to have citizens, regular citizens, pay attention to policy issues, either because they are phrased or framed in complex and technical language, or citizens feel somewhat distanced or separated from the ideals and the ideas and the day-to-day running of government. So you have someone far away in Abuja, and you are living in Maiduguri or in Sokoto or in Abeokuta or in Cross River along the border between Nigeria and Cameroon. So your idea of the federal budget will be, what are those people doing in Abuja? I want to see how I can cook soup tonight. So it's like a mixture of our tendency as human beings to have short attention spans, and also the nature of government in Nigeria being one that persons who manage this government, the politicians, to some extent, some of the civil servants, political appointees, wall themselves off from you. They are either riding in, cars worth billions of naira, or they are walled off in their homes and houses in highbrow areas, or they are literally being guarded by armed guards, whether they're going to the supermarket or doing something as simple as, going to the wet market. So there are multiple reasons why Nigerians are not interested. And, to a very large extent, it isn't really their fault, and it's common in other countries around the world. And I think an interesting question that we can pursue, which I suspect we would discuss going forward, is how can you make people interested in the budget? And that's primarily why my organization exists. I recall once when our global director, had us on a company retreat, and he shared an article, I'm paraphrasing the title now, that said, yes, I'm interested in government, but I have to make dinner tonight. I mean, it was an article for a Western, North American audience, but the principles, the issues being discussed were actually still very relevant for developing country contexts in Africa, which is why I started off my submission by saying that the problem of a lack of attention is not peculiar to Nigeria, but it may seem more endemic because of how poor governance outcomes generally are. I think I will end this opener by saying that citizens can be interested, and there have been, there's anecdotal evidence that even seemingly minute forays, minute depictions of someone who is interested in the welfare of people, when these things are shown to citizens, they would latch onto that, they would develop that interest, and they would stand behind that person. But I guess for Nigeria, the problem is finding persons who are willing to make the sacrifice to actually go into, government and governance, public governance, with the ideals of helping people's lives to flourish.
That's so interesting. And I like what you touched on. If you understood the impact of what the budget is to your everyday life, however, would I say insignificant it might seem, if I know that every single thing that is touched on budget affects how I buy tomato in the market, to cook my meal, maybe if I have that kind of information at that macro level, right, it's possible that I might start to really pay attention to it. So, I mean, tracking of budget matters, and it matters because it connects government's promises, right, to the realities of what we see, the real outcomes, right? So if we want to be intentional about following the money, right, what exactly are we supposed to do as citizens? I've seen a lot of young people on social media go on ranting and talking. I've seen some people that have taken their time to do a bit of research and then break down, for instance, the tax law. There's a guy I follow. He will tell you, okay, we see that your landlord, you have 5 properties. This is how this tax law would affect you as a landlord. So he's approaching it in a way that it is, the information can be consumed by every regular person that's on the road. So how do we approach tracking? Because we know clearly that it matters. But how do we approach the tracking of these funds?
So, before I go into how to approach tracking, which is an interesting question in itself, I do like your phrase where you said it's difficult for people to connect. And, that still speaks to the problem of thinking statistically, which, you beautifully pointed out. It's hard for people to think statistically because the human mind is more, will I say, more inclined towards pattern recognition and what cognitive psychologists call fast and frugal or fuzzy thinking. So, for a person to understand, for instance, how vaccines work and how it's important for everyone to be vaccinated, and if one person isn't vaccinated, that person, presents a danger to the rest of the population. Or for someone to understand that if you have, a set of numbers and you have a very large number out of several small numbers and you calculate the average, you would get a misleading average. even though there's only one large number among several small numbers. So I think your point really speaks to how a lot of intentional education, a lot of intentional enlightenment is necessary. And it's unfortunate that the government may not necessarily be inclined to doing so. I will not question their motives, but these are activities, these are actions that civil society and the media, such as yourself, really do need to take as serious as possible. And I'm glad that you're using your platform for that. So going to your question about tracking the money, why it's important, how it can be done. Again, you painted a very compelling graphic detail that the price of the tomatoes you are buying depends on the government, whether that be local government, whether that be state government, whether that be federal government. And Nigeria, by design, operates a federal structure, which makes it 3 times more different because you are focusing on 3 levels of government, each of which, if they were operating effectively and efficiently and as they should, would demand great amounts of attention, great amount of focus. So there's an importance to be articulated in not just following the money, but in understanding the implications of not doing so. The implications are what is staring us in the face every day: bad governance, poor service delivery outcomes, insufficient energy supply, insecurity, high inflation, etc. So where you are able to follow the money, it's part of a broader conversation around government and around governance. In your opener, you said that when you think about budgets, your head goes in circles. That is to be expected because budgets are not an end. They are a means to an end, which is the delivery of goods and services. So that brings me to my first point about the importance, where you are able to acknowledge that as a citizen, you have a role to play in engaging with the government. It will then become clear to you that the urgency, that the importance of following this thing depends on how much effort you are willing to put in. The upside is that where you're able to do so effectively, you will then get better value for money, i.e., better goods and services delivered. You would have higher chances or opportunities for flourishing, for the improvement of livelihoods. In your first segment, you were talking about GDP and MSMEs. You would have MSMEs or SMEs being empowered much more vigorously, through access to credit and through improved infrastructure. So in following the money, how do you go about doing this? First, you must understand, again, that we operate a federal structure. So each of these levels of government is receiving money, some of them at the same time, through the same channels. So you then go from the money to the functions of that level of government, and that would bring you to the Constitution, our elemental foundational law. Laws are meant to promote social order. So for you to understand the ordering or the functioning or the operations of government, you do have to visit the Constitution to be able to understand what each of these levels of government owes you as a citizen. And, partially to digress at this point, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's tax laws that were passed some time ago that will come into effect in January, I think are a fundamental piece of legislation. Love him or hate him, Tinubu has done something that no other president post 1999 has been able to do. And it's not even the harmonization of the taxes per se, but it's about bringing the conversation about obligations and benefits to the public square. So, prior to now, a lot of Nigeria's earnings and revenue came from oil sales. If you look at GDP, the oil sector doesn't really contribute that much. But if you look at foreign exchange earnings, you see that the oil sector dominates 60 to 65, sometimes even 70% of that paradigm. So this administration is saying, hey, The oil industry is volatile. Let's see how we can reroute these revenues directly to the people. And again, I cannot question Tinubu's motives, right now, but I will say that it will push people to begin to ask questions. It will push people to begin to demand that accountability. It will push people to begin to ask to demand transparency, I beg your pardon. And it will make them realize that the more money the government has, the better it can do. But that doing better, must be within the confines of accountability, transparency, justice, answerability, and the use of technology to make this conversation easier and to reach far more people. So to return to your question about the importance and how it can be done, citizens also need to take the time and put in the efforts. Someone said that democracy is one of humanity's longest running conversations. And any democracy requires people to talk to each other. We must begin to demand that politicians talk to us. From the members of the federal parliament who claim they have constituency offices, now is the time for you to find out whether your parliamentarian has a constituency office. To the federal executives who claim that they hold media parlays and quarterly meetings with CSOs, it's now time for Nigerians to begin to ask, why can we not attend these things ourselves? And that should cascade down, especially to the state governors. They are, I guess, one of Nigeria's most challenging links at the moment because Nigerians live in states. We do not all live in Abuja. And a lot of the infrastructure, a lot of the logistic network, the security, the agriculture that we depend on for our livelihoods is in the hands of the states. So how many questions are we asking about state budgets? I'm about to round up, and I will say that in following the money, what's the first thing you can do? You can ask for your state citizens budget. It is usually available online. In fact, my organization, through our State Fiscal Transparency League Index, quarterly monitors the upload of some of these fiscal documents. And the citizens budget is one document that we ensure to find out that states, or to confirm that states are actually publishing. What does the citizens budget do? It basically simplifies, through the state government's own words, how that state government intends to spend, where the money is coming from, what its policies are, and how its performance has been. And this is usually in simplified language. And again, in our organization, we are making a case for these documents to be transcribed into local languages so that at least literate people can read it and understand. And we also push for town hall meetings and citizens budget discussions where pre, during, and post citizens can engage and ask questions. I think I've said a lot. Let me just stop here.
So whilst you were talking, two things came to my mind, right? The National Orientation Agency and how much literacy we have. Because when you touch on the fact that we need to engage, with our politicians and our leaders at various levels, both state, federal, or, local government levels, the thing that kept on ringing in my head is the literacy level, right? How well informed are we, and what's supposed to be the role of the National Orientation Agency, in ensuring that the citizen is really enlightened enough, because I feel like most times we don't even know what to ask for. We don't have an idea. It's not because we don't want to ask, we just don't know. So if there is already a knowledge gap, right, how do we believe that the government, there is transparency or genuineness in some of their actions? You commended some of the bold moves that our president has taken. I can bet you for free that it is only the people that are enlightened that would understand some of the policies that he's taken. The majority of the people, the mass, they don't have any knowledge of this. And you see, if you are doing something and you're not able to communicate that, to the most, what's it called, lowest of all amongst your citizens, then it means you still have a lot of job to do. You still have a lot of work to do. But let me go on a very short break, right? When I come back, I would like you to help me respond to National Orientation Agency, the literacy challenges that we're having or the knowledge gap that we're having. How do we mitigate that? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
All right, thanks for staying tuned. Now, if you just tuned in, we are discussing, or we are following the money rather, as a tool for tracking Nigeria's budget. Please let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081 803 84663. You can call us on 07025007749 or 0701424220. Let's hear what you have to say. All right, so before we went on a break, I had asked the question on the national orientation agencies and also what, the knowledge gap, how this is impacting that lack of engagement from the part of the citizen. Do you want to comment on that? Can you hear me?
Sorry, Osai, I didn't get that.
Okay, so I said before we went on a break, I had touched on National Orientation Agency, right? And also citizens, the knowledge gap among citizens, right? How do these issues, right? How does that dynamic, how does it work? How is it impacting on this non-engagement of lawmakers or people that are supposed to be, ensuring that the budget is followed through?
I mean, another great question, and I think I'll start from the end. The knowledge gap is fundamental, and I think that is one of the most significant reasons why there has not been that appreciable swell of persons that are willing to put their feet down and work together to ensure that the political process to ensure that they engage with the political process. I mean, it's partially because of the frustration and cynicism that Nigerians have regarding what politicians do. They say things like, whether I vote or I don't vote, politicians will shall do what they want. It would interest a lot of Nigerians to know that politicians actually do care about votes. And as bad as Nigeria is or might be, if politicians did not care, you'd not hear things like vote buying. It shows that politicians are actually very, very worried and concerned about how many votes they are able to get. By and large, from a study carried out by the Athena Center, a lot of the rigging that politicians even do is unnecessary, because in many cases, the specific locations where they rigged, according to the research carried out by the Athena Center, they actually would have already won even if they had not rigged. So, I think that's a very subtle point. I think the larger question about education is one that rests squarely on the local government. And you may find that surprising. What does the local government have to do, with voter education? Well, if you look at the Constitution and you look at Schedule 4, that speaks to the scope of the local government, one of the streams of authority is adult education. And for you to vote, you have to be an adult. So it presupposes that adults who have a sufficient amount of knowledge or information on the political process or on civics, should be better informed than those that do not. So you then ask, so how many of these persons have formal education where they pass through a primary school, a secondary school, and a university to be able to appreciate as an adult the implications of public governance? The answer is very few. If you think of education, as only, or if you think of sophisticated education as ending in the university, then only a handful of Nigerians are sophisticatedly educated. A large number of Nigerians, many of whom are subject to a lot of poverty, do not really have that much of an education. So the framers of our Constitution understood that there has to be some intervention by a level of government. Which better level than the local government that is, in quote, closest to the people? So that civic education that persons do not get from primary school, for various reasons, that education on civics, on the Constitution, on the roles and obligations and duties of citizens should be taught as a matter of course by adult education programs at the local government level. And one of these focuses should be on civic education for adults. So I think that's really where attention should lie. The local governments have struggled for decades with mismanagement. We thought that we had come to uhuru, as it's said in Swahili, with the Supreme Court judgment, have mandating monies to be paid to the local governments, but it seems like that has just become a political exercise. The governors are preventing it. Don't quote me on that, but that has not happened. So the responsibility will still again fall back on the media and civil society, organizations such as yours, print, television, traditional media, new media, civil society organizations, especially those like mine that work in the transparency, accountability, and civic tech space, do have that duty as often as possible to break down this complex information and help Nigerians understand that there is a role that they have to play as citizens in a liberal democracy. And that role is to get engaged. And that role is to be interested, because the flip side of not being interested is having these cycles of inflation, of insecurity, of poor governance and service delivery continuing and reaching fever pitch. I can assure you, my dear Nigerians, that things can get worse. So the amount of interest or the amount of change you want to see in the system is directly related to how much energy you are willing to put in. Very quickly, let me get to the first point you made and the role of the National Orientation Agency. I'm going to say something that some people might think is unpopular or controversial, I do not think you can change culture by policy pronouncement. Cultures do not change by pronouncements from a DG. Cultures do not change by pronouncements, by a political appointee in a microphone, riding in his Prado Jeep, coming from his office in Abuja. Cultures change when you have significant, well-known persons that everybody can see or is interested in or looks up to are changing their behaviors themselves. What social psychologists call norm entrepreneurs. So norms tend to change when the person that you look up to, it could be a celebrity, it could be, a political figure, it could be an internationally, globally recognized star, a sports person, is doing something that you think other people think they should do and that you think other people think you should do. Okay? So I guess I could summarize it in leading by example. I think that's a perfect summary
So
of how
I
cultures
hear
change.
you when you say lead by example, and you're absolutely correct, because it's not a function of say what I do, right? That applies. Usually people do what you do. It's not a, so where we are as a people, right? It is years and years of actions that are done that the younger generation watched, and no consequences, and things just continued until it became a culture. Culture is established when you have something done repeatedly, so it keeps imprinting in the minds of people. And I feel like that's where the National Orientation Agency should have come in terms of, and you're right when you say that prominent people. So okay, so it just brings me back to the initial statement that I had made, right? Because how best do we communicate? Because you see, we're in the era of content. Content right now is everywhere, and everything we do, what we're doing now is content. What you say on social media, your comment on somebody's post is content, right? Everything is content, and we're consuming millions, tons of millions of content per second, right? Just scrolling through social media and all of that. So I believe that, if we truly want to change the game and get citizens to become a lot more engaged, to follow this money, there has to be intentionality in pushing out contents that are like subliminal messaging, that imprints in the minds of people. So over time, you then begin to become, you find yourself, you're conscious about this thing and you're wondering why. It's because it has been playing, repeatedly in different forms, be it music, be it content on your TikTok, on Instagram, be it a text, like you rightly said. So there's a huge role that the agency, the orientation agency, would play, but it's not the traditional way they've been doing those things, right? Just taking a megaphone and just talking, or playing jingles on radio. All those things don't work anymore. There has to be, I get you, it has to be backed with behavioral change, because that's where we are able to then make it sit properly. But because we are running out of time, what are the tools that you would recommend, for us as citizens? Because right now it seems like we're talking over the heads of the people that actually matter in terms of the mass, because sometimes when we are speaking all this big English, they truly don't even understand it, right? And that's why they are always very comfortable going to or tilting towards programs that helps their mental capacity, comprehend the conversation. But if you had like simple tools that we could say citizens can go back to check to say, okay, this is how I can start at a very macro level, how I can start to monitor. What are those tools you recommend? You've been talking about your organization, so tell us what the tool, the name, and all of that, and if there are others we can also follow.
Yeah, thank you so much. I guess it's now time for me to shamelessly plug my organization. I think one of the first tools that citizens can access is the Tracker mobile app. Tracker is Tracka, Tracker, and it's an application that brings you into the conversation about capital projects. What are capital projects? Hospitals, schools, roads, town halls, those goods, physical resources that the government has budgeted for in federal budgets and that seeks to provide for citizens. So Tracker is an application that if you have a smartphone or a mobile device, you can register and begin to report or even find out about projects, around you. And it helps you become an active citizen where you are engaging and reporting and uploading pictures and asking questions in real time regarding, the construction of a school, or the delivery of medical consumables, etc. So Tracker uses technology to bring people into that conversation. Another tool we have is called GovSpend. And now GovSpend helps you track government expenditure. As the name states, government spending. And what GovSpend does is that it pulls data from the federal government's Open Treasury Portal. The Open Treasury Portal is an online platform that was put together by the previous Accountant General of the Federation. I hate to say that was charged to court for, bribery and for corruption, but, it was under his watch that platform was put together that basically warehouses the daily spending of the federal government. So whether it be in environment, whether it be in labor and industry, education, health, there's information on how much the government is spending daily. So monies that are paid to contractors, for instance, monies that are paid, for overheads, for civil servants, is there and you can see it. Unfortunately, the federal government, or rather the Office of the Accountant General, the current Accountant General, has stated that the accounting procedures, the digital accounting process is being revised, or there's a new protocol being put in place. So a lot of information has not been uploaded. In fact, I think the latest data on the Open Treasury platform is from January of this year. And, because GovSpend takes from Open Treasury, GovSpend can only put out what Open Treasury has already put out. So if you go to GovSpend, you won't really see much for 2025, but it's still a very interesting tool that I would encourage Nigerians to use. Another one is our AI chatbot called Bimi. Bimi is like a ChatGPT for Nigerians that talks or can talk on public financial management issues, government spending, government projects, and public governance and public administration in general. So I would also ask you to ask Nigerians to take a look at that as well. We have other reports and indexes like our State of States report that looks at the subnational fiscal health. So all the 36 states, how well are their hearts beating, in terms of money? How well are they breathing in terms of capital expenditure? So the State of States also has a microsite where you can find information on how well your state has performed, looking at its spending, looking at its savings, looking at how it raises revenue, etc. We also have the State Fiscal Transparency League table that, like I said earlier, ranks states according to how well they put out financial information. So I would, encourage you to Google SFTL, or State Fiscal Transparency League Index by budget. You said we are short for time, so I think I'll stop here.
Yeah, I think so. We are short of time. But if you had one final thing to say to a Nigerian that is still thinking, should I follow budgets? What would you say to that person?
I would say absolutely follow budgets. Things can get worse. The globe is, full of stories of countries that have gone into very dire situations. And I don't think any right-thinking person wants Nigeria to end up like that. Please be interested. Please be involved. I know it's difficult, but it will pay off in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. All right.
So
again, budgets are not just numbers, right? They are promises of development. When citizens track how money is allocated and spent, they help close that gap between paper commitments and, of course, real life actions and change that would eventually see. Accountability becomes stronger when Nigerians take up the duty of following the money. By using tools, as my guest had mentioned, Tracker. There's also another one by Enough is Enough, Shine Your Eye. And there's another one, Spending Portal. Different kinds of tools. He mentioned the one from Budget. He also mentioned the AI tools, the applications. every of those tools are meant for us to make life easy for ourselves and break down and simplify, the budget, however complicated it is. So every citizen, you can truly play a role in ensuring that these public officers, right, our public resources deliver public good, and these people that hold these offices are held accountable. The office of the citizen, it remains one of the most powerful office in any democracy. You have the power to do a lot of things as Nigerians, and it is through this office that Nigerians can insist on government that truly serves the people and not just their personal pockets or their personal visions or personal goals, right? It has to be about the people, and we can do that if we're intentional about active engagements with our lawmakers. So please take advantage of those tools that have been mentioned, and let us see how we can intentionally, change the game for ourselves in Nigeria. All right, so thank you so much to our guests, and thank you guys for watching. Remember to share this link. It's important that you share. It's important that you put it on your WhatsApp status, whatever it is. Just keep sharing the links. Subscribe to our channel. Follow us across all our social media handles. Invite families and friends, to continue to watch and follow. If you missed the quote for today, it says, consistent budget tracking by citizen is a veritable key to ensuring transparency and accountability in an ideal democratic setting. I mean, that is when it is ideal. So that's why we have to start to intentionally shape our democracy to become ideal. We're not where we want to be, but we're far from where we started. But if we continue to intentionally do what is right, things will change in this country. I'm very hopeful of that. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your evening.